A lot in baseball has changed since the 8th of July. Trust me, you're going to understand what we're talking about. Since the 8th of July, the fates of several teams have gone up in smoke or caught on fire. This is Locked On MLB. Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to the Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks crossover that we do every single week. This is the show where we bring the minds of Locked On MLB and Locked On Diamondbacks, and we morph them, we Voltron them into one beautiful mind of baseball to talk about the events of the day. I am your co-host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Thank you so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Or maybe your first listen is Locked On Diamondbacks, who's hosted by this guy right over here. What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, I would want to say, just follow me on Twitter, my personal account, @CreatorThomas24. Could always use more followers on there. Could use more followers for the show account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram. And hey, also hit that follow button on YouTube, Locked On Diamondbacks as well. And of course, we're on all your podcasting platforms.
And if you want more followers, make sure to say your name. And your name is?
Millard Thomas, baby.
That's right. That's why you don't have all the followers. People go to the search engine. Where is the Locked On Diamondbacks hunk? And you can't find him.
Yeah. What can you do?
Yeah. But anyway, what we're doing, thanks so much for making us your first listen. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on both Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, but Sully Baseball and Sully Baseball on Twitter. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. So yesterday I dropped an episode. I gave you all a little fun Sunday bonus there. We talked about Winton Bernard, the feel-good story of Winton Bernard, who was the Colorado Rockies outfielder who made his debut at age 31 and had a FaceTime message that made you cry like you were watching 15 Hallmark movies simultaneously. If you want to feel good about that, check your podcast feed. That dropped on Sunday. It's probably there Monday morning. So let's have the feel-bad story of the weekend. One of the biggest stars in baseball who's been injured and is looking to make a comeback for a playoff-bound team. Not so fast. Fernando Tatis Jr., last year's National League leader in home runs, one of the most fun stars in baseball, suspended for the P, the E, and the D's. Thoughts, Millard Thomas?
Yeah, let's change his name from Fernando to Fraud Nando because he's now on my steroid shit list, Sully. Okay, I'm not going that far.
Whoa. We get an explicit rating.
Yeah, we won't go that far, but it does suck for the Padres. I mean, if you're a Padres fan, you're just like, whenever it feels like we're building towards something, whenever we got a little bit of momentum as a team, we just traded for Juan Soto. We got a couple of all-star level players at the deadline. We got Josh Hader. We are working our way to a potential championship run. All we need is our final piece, our superstar, Fernando Tatis Jr., to be inserted into our lineup. Then we're taking off. We're making our run, and what happens? Fernando Tatis gets caught with a little PEDs. Apparently, he's trying to treat a little ringworm. I don't know what situation Tatis got going on over there, but he took something he shouldn't have. And now, not only are we not going to see him for this season because of the injuries and now the suspension, but we're not going to see him for like the first 40 games of next year. So just an unfortunate situation all around for Padres fans.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look at every time a Padre fan thinks things are starting to go their way, they get a proverbial kick to the groin. Look, San Diego is still right now one of the playoff teams. They won the Juan Soto sweepstakes and the Josh Hader sweepstakes. We forget that they arranged to pull that one off too.
I don't think anyone knew those were sweepstakes. I think that was.
I know that was. They won the Bob Melvin sweepstakes. No one knew he was up for grabs. They're a star-studded team, and they're probably going to make the playoffs. But I got to stress probably because the National League wild card has some teams that are on, that are on the periphery right now. And look at right now, as of this recording, the Braves are the top wild card team. As of this recording, the Padres are only a half game ahead of Philadelphia for the second wild card, and they're actually tied in the loss column with Milwaukee, who is chasing St. Louis for the National League Central. But there is a real scenario that if San Diego has a slump, that Philadelphia, who are maybe getting Bryce Harper back pretty soon and have been playing great baseball recently. Granted, they've been beating up on some bad teams, but still, that's one of the things you have to do. You have to beat the bottom feeders. Remember, the Phillies go off to that rotten start that cost Joe Girardi his job. There is a scenario where the Padres could once again nosedive and miss the playoffs. The Brewers have good pitching. St. Louis is a good team. Philadelphia is a good team. There is, and they are not so. They're tied in the loss column with Milwaukee, and Philadelphia is actually one game less than them in the loss column. So the scenario that has the Padres having their second annual crash and burn nosedive out of the playoffs is sitting there, and it's going to show a great amount of resolve from this club to see, do they keep winning with this terrible piece of news that, don't have it hamstring them.
Yeah, that's what makes the situation so frustrating, because it's not like an outlandish take to say, what if the Padres just nosedive out of the postseason race? Because we saw this just last season in the second half, where a very good first half Padres team just nosedive in the second half, and then they miss the postseason entirely. That could definitely happen again this season. But if you believe the Padres were maybe a championship World Series contender before the trade deadline, then I don't think this news should really affect your expectations for the Padres the rest of the season, because they did get better at the deadline, whether Tatis is there or not. If you thought this was a World Series team before the deadline, just missing Tatis, well, after the deadline, they still don't got Tatis, but they added Sotos, the Haters, the Drurys, the Josh Bells. So if you like this Padres team before the deadline, I don't think this news should really change your opinion of this team too much, because they got so much better after this deadline. I really think if this Padres team was to not make the postseason, I don't think it would be because the Padres nosedive or anything like that. I think it would be because of the other teams you mentioned, the Brewers, the Phillies, one of those teams getting hot. Like if you said, like what you just mentioned, if the Phillies got Bryce Harper back and then they went on some sort of run, I think that would be more likely for the Padres to not make the postseason. Another team getting hot as opposed to the Padres getting cold.
The Padres are on pace to win 90 games. That's where they are at right now.
So they'll be right there.
Yeah. And they're playing roughly, as I said, roughly as well as St. Louis and as Milwaukee and as Philadelphia. The fact that St. Louis made some really good trade deadline moves, kind of under the radar moves, how we all talked ad nauseum about how last year's biggest moves weren't the most heralded moves, but it was the Solairs and the Rosarios and the Petersons. Well, it looks like the acquisitions of Montgomery and Quintana has given St. Louis a really solid pair of starting pitchers to go with what is already a pretty good pitching staff. And we saw Adam Wainwright is ageless through 9 innings the other day in a losing cause, but to Milwaukee. It's going to be interesting for San Diego. Now this is being dropped on this episode is being dropped on Monday. The Padres are indeed idle on Monday, so they don't play again till tomorrow. And I got to check. Actually, I got to check the schedule to see who the heck they're playing. But they're playing the Marlins, who just got swept by Atlanta. But one thing about the Marlins is they're not a great team, but they have very good pitching.
Yeah.
And when you have a team where it has the Cy Young front runner, and they have going on Tuesday Cabrera, who pitched a wonderful game his last game. Manaea is pitching for San Diego, and Manaea's been up and down. Sometimes he's looked like the great pitcher he was in Oakland, and sometimes he's stubbed his toe. They really better hope that the offense has gelled, because they're going to go to Miami and play, face some decent arms. And this is not a drill for them. They have to play well against these teams, and they have to beat the teams they're supposed to, because they can't afford a single slip up.
Yeah, and the Marlins are not going to be any easy task, like you just mentioned, because that pitching staff is going to be nasty. And right now, the Marlins are just kind of playing around with their roster, calling up and sending down a lot of dudes. So they're going to be trying some younger talent, most likely, against the Padres team that might not be, someone that's normally in their lineup. And this Padres team, like when they first, got together after the trade deadline, it took the offense a little bit of time to coalesce and just, start to gel together. And recently, over the last 4 or 5 games, this offense has been pretty explosive for the Padres. They've gotten really good recently against the Giants team. They put some 7+ run games together. They had 10 runs against the Nationals. Like, those aren't great teams, but at least we're seeing this Padres team, this offense starting to form together as they start to play together more. So I think this Marlins matchup will be tough, but I do like this Padres team still going forward. I think as they play more together, they're only going to get better. The Tatis news sucks, but I just think this team is too good and too talented with what they did at the deadline. Like, I would still be pretty surprised overall if this Padres team did make the postseason, because I still like their chances of even making the World Series, even with teams like the Dodgers and Mets in the National League.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing anyone other than the Dodgers or the Mets going in. But then again, last year I didn't think someone other than the Giants or the Dodgers were going to make the World Series either last year. So we can always be surprised.
Yeah, if you get to 90 wins as the Padres and you make the postseason, like, it doesn't care what it looks like when you get there. Once you're in the postseason, anyone could win the dance.